Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good grief. My name is William Lawson, and welcome to the Morning Report. I want to talk about fraud. We've been locked into Minnesota and all the fraud going on there. There's a lot more. The conversation finally locked on to Minnesota, and for good reason. The Feeding Our Future scandal wasn't small time abuse or just paperwork sloppiness. It was a $250 million criminal enterprise that thrived in plain sight, funded by federal dollars, your dollars, protected by bureaucratic inertia, and shielded by political fear. The numbers were staggering. Coordination, brazen, and the oversight failures are undeniable. But Minnesota isn't the story. Minnesota is just the case study. The real story is national and much larger. Across the country, massive federal benefits programs like SNAP, EBT, SSI, Medicaid, housing insurance, child nutrition programs move trillions of dollars every year through systems that were never designed to withstand modern fraud tactics. Wherever that kind of money flows, with weak verification, outdated technology, and inconsistent enforcement, organized theft follows. Well, always. This is not an argument against helping the poor. Stop. This is an argument against running trillion-dollar systems like they're still using carbon paper and trust falls. Three different problems exist, constantly confused on purpose. One reason the issue never gets resolved is because people argue past each other. Critics say fraud, defenders say that's insulting poor people. Bureaucrats say those are just improper payments. Everyone's technically right and completely unhelpful. There are three distinct problems, and they need to be named honestly. First problem is straight up fraud. Criminal intent, organized theft. And this is what normal people mean when they say fraud. You get fake identities, you get stolen social security numbers, synthetic households. I love that. Households that don't exist. Shell nonprofits. Retail trafficking benefits for cash. People who sell their food stamps so they can get their hair, so they can get their nails and hair did. Happens. Providers billing for services that never happened. These aren't desperate individuals missing a form. These are networks. Often well organized, sometimes interstate, sometimes international, as we're finding out, exploiting predictable weaknesses in government systems. Minnesota's Feeding Our Future scheme fits squarely here. Nothing about it was accidental. It wasn't ambiguous. It wasn't ambiguous. It was planned. It was coordinated and aggressively executed while regulators hesitated and politicians just looked the other way. Anyone pretending this doesn't exist nationally is lying. Anybody who pretends that this doesn't exist nationally is lying. All right, number two. This is unnecessary. Improper payments. Well, not always fraud, but the problem is that it's still real money. And this is where Washington loves to hide. The improper payments doesn't always mean fraud. Sometimes it's missing documentation. Sometimes eligibility change and it wasn't updated. Sometimes, and that means that at some point they were eligible, and then something changed, and now they're not eligible. But this never changed. Sometimes income wasn't verified in time. Sometimes the system simply failed to check at all. But here's the part that no one wants to say out loud: money paid out incorrectly is still money gone. If I'm supposed to get $700 in food stamps and I check my card and there's $1,200 on it, I'm gonna be honest. I probably won't say anything either. So I'm not expecting that the single mom with 4 kids is going to say a damn word. Don't say anything. They know they're supposed to get 7, and they got 5 extra. They're not going to say anything. And you can call it an incorrect payment because it probably is, but that money is still gone. The federal government routinely reports hundreds of billions of dollars in improper payments across all its agencies. Medicare alone consistently posts tens of billions of dollars annually in payments that fail the most basic verification standards. Now, calling it improper instead of fraud does not make the taxpayers whole, and it doesn't help legitimate receipts either. It just lowers expectations. 3, trafficking and leakage, the shadow cash economy. Now, this is the quiet middle ground, and it's much bigger than you probably have ever thought about. SNAP and EBT trafficking is not a myth. It's the practice of exchanging benefits for cash, usually at a discount, often through complicit retailers. The USDA itself estimates billions of dollars lost over time through trafficking and payment errors. And this creates this whole parallel economy. Benefits become liquid currency. The criminals profit. Legitimate receipts get caught in enforcement sweeps. And trust in the programs just erode, they go away. And once again, the people who need help the most always pay the price for a system that refuses to protect itself. SSI. Boy, do we know a little bit about SSI in our neighborhood. The giant nobody wants to touch. The supplemental security income is one of the most vulnerable programs in the federal system and one of the least discussed. Why? Because it's means tested. SSI eligibility depends on income, assets, living arrangement, and household composition. Those factors change constantly. People's income goes up and down for whatever reasons. What assets they actually have come and go. Who they live with, where they're living, all that changes. Yet the verification of it is slow. So you get SSI under certain conditions, and those conditions change. The chances of somebody coming in and going, "Oh, so you don't live with them anymore," or now you have a third person, or "Oh, this person is taking care of this." "Oh, so your income went." That is not happening. It's not being verified. It's fragmented and often years behind reality. The result is persistent overpayments and underpayments and a ballooning backlog of uncollected funds. Over time, improper payments accumulate into tens of billions of dollars, not because recipients are universally dishonest, no, but because the system is structurally incapable of keeping up with the reality. And ignoring that isn't compassion, it's negligence. Because the national pattern is clear. Across programs and across states, the same failures repeat. Identity and eligibility verification is weak and a lot of times non-existent. Agents often can't or won't cross-check things like income records, incarceration data. People get an SSI who are in jail. People get an SSI and they dead. People get an SSI and there's interstate duplicates. They're getting that payment once, twice, three times. They didn't work and now they work. Employment changes. They got SSI and now they work. So then now they work and get SSI. Sometimes the technology isn't there. Sometimes the law blocks data sharing. Sometimes officials are simply afraid of the political backlash if verification looks too strict. And the fraud rings know this, and they move faster than the bureaucracy. You ever notice the criminals? The criminals are just right on it. And you're wondering, how do they think of this? Well, because they're criminals. What they do is their job. And they know exactly where the enforcement lags. Number two, incentives reward speed, not accuracy. States and administrators are often praised for enrolling quickly, getting going fast, making sure people get their money right away, and avoiding any disruptions. Now, people get raked over the coals for delays. Oh, you had this program and you didn't get this money out, blah 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 blah, and denials. Why aren't you giving this money out? Aggressive verification. You're looking too deep into this. Blah blah blah. All sorts of reasons. Are you profiling? It's exactly backwards. So when speed becomes the primary virtue, accuracy becomes optional. And the criminals rush in to exploit that gap. Number three, enforcement is sporadic, if it exists at all, and politicized. Some fraud cases are aggressively prosecuted, like we've seen. Others are ignored for years. Well, some will trigger a national outrage, while others are quietly settled or even dropped. The inconsistency sends a clear message to the criminal. The risk is worth it. Criminal enterprises don't need perfect systems to exploit, just ones that are predictable. And this is not about demonizing the poor. Come on, let's be clear. Say it plainly. Most people receiving benefits are not criminals. Most people who are receiving benefits are not criminals. Most recipients are just trying to survive, trying to work and care for families and cope with a disability. But pretending fraud doesn't exist hurts those folks, those very people. Every dollar stolen reduces public trust. Every dollar stolen fuels political backlash. Every dollar stolen invites blunt reform that hit legitimate families the hardest. A system that refuses to police itself will eventually get gutted, not reformed. So we talk about reform. What does reform actually look like? I think if leaders were serious, not performative, the fixes are obvious. Real-time data matching across agencies and states. Real time. Automatic eligibility checks for high-risk cases. Okay. Stricter retail authorization and rapid removal from SNAP trafficking. If you know that the corner store is letting people buy liquor and cigarettes on the SNAP, you take that away from them. You take Snap away from them fast. We've been doing a lot of videos on the like about delayed consequences. That when you just say you better not do that again, you can get another warning. It's like a child. Don't do it again. Don't do it again. Don't do it again. You better not do it again. And no consequences come. What the child learns, what the system learns, what the criminal learns is, I can do this forever. No one's ever going to stop me because they don't want to stop me. They don't want to put up with all the crap it takes to actually stop me and actually punish me. They don't want to do it. So they won't. So there's also modern fraud analytics similar to what banks use every day. I know some people involved in the financial industry and underwriting and the like, and there are techniques and analytics they use every day to spot fraud. The government does. Upgrade the EBT technology to reduce skimming and cloning. Prosecution that targets organizers, not just the low-level participants. Don't just send the recipients to jail. And do your work. Find out who are some of the ringleaders. Prosecute them. Send them to jail. And none of this requires cruelty. Not any of it. None of this requires cutting legitimate aid. But it does require competence. And it does require courage. Because here's the hard truth. The real scandal isn't that America helps people. The real scandal is that the federal government runs trillion-dollar benefit systems like a rummage sale, and then act shocked when professional thieves show up with trucks. Minnesota didn't invent this problem. It just exposed it. And until Washington stops confusing compassion with incompetence, this quiet national scandal will keep growing. Unseen by most, but paid by everybody. And devastating to the very people these programs were meant to help. Thank you ever so much for coming to the Morning Report. My name is Will Austin. Until we see you again, go out there and learn some, love somebody. And for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.